Welcome back to the Woodworking Talk Show. If you are new to the world of DIY projects and ready to start woodworking, I have a free guide to get you started. In it, you'll learn how you can get all the tools you need for under $1,000. Head over to mytoollist.com and download that guide today. Fix This, Build That is a YouTube channel created by a very beardless Brad Rodriguez back in 2016. His channel features mostly woodworking and shop projects, as well as some DIY, home improvement, and remodeling projects, such as his most popular video, How to Install Vinyl Plank Flooring as a Beginner Home Renovation, which has racked up 20 million views. Wow.
Insane.
And like any smart YouTuber, he followed it up with 3 more videos on vinyl flooring. His furniture projects are both practical and beautiful, featuring hardwoods, epoxy, and secret hidden things. People really like secret hidden things.
You got it, right? Yeah, you just you throw hidden or secret in there, and it's the twist. You got to have the twist. It's like you can't, back in the good old days, you could do a dining table. But now it's got to be like a dining table with a secret hidden epoxy under drawer with wireless charging, and
it's got to be hidden. It's got to be. Half of the comments are going to be like, "Well, that's where you're going to hide your weed."
Yeah, 100%.
Like, well, it's legal now. You don't have to.
It's not a secret anymore. You just showed us. Yeah.
I even have a secret YouTube channel. Don't tell anybody. I mostly use it for like testing things, but I think it's kind of fun. I've often thought about having like another YouTube channel that I could just like leave comments incognito on other channels.
Oh yeah. But sometimes you go. There's been many times where I'm like, I really want to comment about how I really feel, but I'm like, I cannot do that on at least not on my like fix this, build that. Like that was stupid. Like no. Like we'll keep it classy. Keep it classy.
Shop projects and shop furniture are mainstays on Fix This, Build That. And currently, Brad is working on remodeling his home office. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. And curiously, despite the channel name, there are very few things being fixed, mostly built. Hey, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, that was actually really funny. Just the whole Fix This, Build That. And I don't know, as you went through that process of naming the channel, I know some people are really diligent and they're like, think about the SEO and all this, and just like thinking about the whole thing. But it was my wife and I, when we first started the channel, we were like, I don't know, what would be a good name? We're like just throwing all these random names out, and like list of all the tools, and like list like, okay, what could we be? And then it was actually my wife Susan who came up with the name Fix This, Build That, because the original intent was that it was going to be like almost like this old house, right? This old house. So it's like be fixing the water heater one day and like building a coffee table the next day, and then yes, it became pretty much Build That. But with the home improvement stuff, I figured that is Fix This. So it's more of Fix This in terms of home renovation versus fixing water heaters necessarily.
Right. And at no point were you ever tempted to fix that and build this.
I own that domain. That is
that's right.
So yeah, a little tip for the audience out there: if you're going to come up with a name, like think about all the different ways that people can misname it. Because I own like 8 domains, like because of all the different. Build that, fix this, build that, fix that, build that. Like it's.
Because people are going to mess it up, and then if you search for it, if you've got those forwarding, they'll find you anyways. And Mike Montgomery from Modern Builds. I was talking to him, and he came up with his channel name Modern Builds just because of Google. It was like, okay, people are going to be searching for modern things and building things.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Put the two together.
100%. I wasn't quite as smart as Mike, and also like having those I don't know what they call them. They're basically like stop words, right? Like this and that. Like those are horrible search terms. So it's like fix this, build. Like I should have been like fix home, build wood, or something, like if I was really going for SEO. But whatever. It's kind of stuck with me now, so it's a good name.
Kind of like the name of this Woodworking Talk Show. I couldn't think of anything. But you know what I did is I did take out the domain of the Woodworking Talk Show. So at some point I may actually do something with it. But I thought, if I don't, somebody else is.
That's right. And then they'll sell it back to you, in
exactly,
5 years when, you've gotten 10 million followers.
Hey, I saw your video, Why I Quit My Job to Make DIY Videos at 40 with 3 kids. And according to that, you had a couple videos you posted as early as 2014. Where are those videos?
It's called unlisted, Steve. They're not deleted, but they are certainly unlisted. One was my very first video. I went back, and there's a clip of it actually in that clips of both of them. But I was like, filming on my Samsung Galaxy S3. I think there was literally one light bulb in my garage, and I've got like my beanie on and like a sweatshirt, and I'm just like, oh, hey, like here's how you plasti dip your windows. It was like installing insulation on a garage door. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
You got to re-upload it and post it on April Fool's Day or something.
I should.
Everybody would be like, what?
I'd be like, new to the channel.
Where's the beard?
Yeah, the beard came on. Actually, I think that's when the people at my day job. So I was in corporate America for 17 years. Right. And about when I really knew, like, yes, I'm going full time, but I had like this plan, and our youngest child we wanted her to be in kindergarten before we stopped, because then my wife was going to go back to work. So that was all part of it was like tag team, right? It was like, I'm coming out of the workforce, she's going back in, because she was a stay-at-home mom for about 8 years. And so as that happened, I was thinking like, oh, like what, how can I start doing this thing? And I was like, well, I know I'm going to do it. And like, now I don't care as much. I'm just going to like grow out my beard. And so I get, all of a sudden I had this full beard at work, and like, I used to be this like super clean cut guy, and they were like, is this like midlife crisis? I'm like, oh, just no. What I did, it was like the whole no shave November. That's when I started it. And then I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep it. And oh yeah, by the way, I quit.
Yeah, I'm out of here, guys. See you later.
Yeah.
One of the things you said in that video was that you kind of started your channel because you wondered how many people would come to your funeral. Not to get a little dark here, but is that a fear that kind of still drives you in a way?
I think it. So just it's not from a vanity perspective, but just so for folks that haven't heard it. So what I was friends with this guy that was in a poker group, and he was a teacher, and so he had a heart attack and passed away, and we went to his funeral, to his visitation, and there were just thousands and thousands of people there, because it was like all the people that he had taught and made an impact on their lives. And that was the thing that got me. It was like, that I was like, oh, like, if I died tomorrow, if I had this heart attack, like who would show up to my funeral? And it would be like, oh, like I had a great group of friends and people, I made like some coworkers, but it was like, I would stretch to be like, oh, would there be like 100 people at my funeral? Probably not. And it wasn't, again, it's not like more of a vanity, but it's like, how, what am I doing to impact people that I would be remembered by them, and not just that they would be remembered, that I would be remembered, but because I made a change in somebody's life. Like, right, I helped them out in some way, that I'm special in their life, that they're like, oh man, like, Brad taught me so much. And that was like that thing. I saw that his Bill Brewer was the guy's name, is that he just touched so many kids' lives. And it really got me thinking. And that was something that like I hadn't really thought about, but like it was that moment that kind of like materialized it for me, is that as you sit there at a desk job, it's like, what am I doing? I'm like helping this company make tens of millions of dollars, because I work for like huge companies, and it's billions of dollars for all these companies, but like I'm helping them make their profits, but like whose lives am I changing? Like how am I affecting people? How am I helping change the world? And like the answer is, I'm not. Like, I'm helping this like grocery store, increase their profit margin by 10%. and that's just not a fulfilling thing.
And for anybody who didn't see that video, and if you didn't watch that video, go watch it. It was your 100 million subscriber video, I guess.
100 million, yes, 100 million.
Man, you're killing it over there.
Me and PewDiePie, yeah, I called up PewDiePie, and we did a joint collab.
So that was your 1,000 subscriber. No, wait, a million subscribers.
Yes, the million subscriber video.
Yeah, and so describe to people kind of a little bit about your backstory and getting started on YouTube. I know that, and you just mentioned coming from a corporate life, but you got your start on Instagram, didn't you?
Yeah, I had I don't know many people that have the same story as I do, just because it's so different now, and like everybody goes straight to YouTube. But I started on Instagram back it was like 2013, early 2014. And I remember I thought Instagram was like a photo editing app. People kept talking about Instagram. I was like, what? Now, I just thought it was like VSCO, like one of those, because people kept talking about it. I didn't understand what it was at the time. And then I had a friend who was actually into weightlifting, bodybuilding, basically fitness. She's in the fitness channels, like when fitness first started like really taking off. And I looked at her channel and it was like, she had like 50,000 followers. And I was like, what is this? And it's like, back early days. I was like, that is massive. That's insane. And I was like, what is this thing? And so I got on there and I started sharing my woodworking projects, because that was the hobby I was into. And I had just moved to Nashville for the job, and found this like small woodworking community on Instagram. And now I was watching YouTube, obviously. I was watching you and Mark and Jay and some of those early folks on the YouTube scene. And I was just like anybody else, just enjoying my hobby in my garage. And then I was like, oh, I want to share some stuff. And so I started sharing, and then all of a sudden, like, people started following, and because the community was so small, like I was just like, by necessity, they're like, who is this guy? He's not that great, but he's there. So we're going to follow him. And so I just started building and growing. And then what happened is, like, people, cause this was back in the days and like no video, before they even had any video, and people were asking me like, I want, like, show me more. And so then I started the blog. So I went from social media to a blog, and then people were like, I want to see.
It's all backwards.
Exactly.
There.
I know, it's weird. And then people are like, I want more. Like, why don't you do YouTube videos? And so then I went to YouTube. So that was kind of the process. It was Instagram to a blog to YouTube. And that was kind of the growth trajectory and story. And each one of those grew. And so, but it was cool because I got to understand social media before I had like any of the pressures of blog and YouTube. So like I really was able to build that out and understand how to grow a channel. And then same thing on the blog. I went really deep on SEO, figured all that out, and then YouTube. So I had like all this background. So I was really like, looking back at it, I had a lot of experience and a lot of tools. And then just with my business background, being able to take all that and then put that into the YouTube channel was, a huge like step forward for me. Not just like being like, I want to start making YouTube videos and just like starting day one, like, yeah. And then you've got to learn all those things.
What was the hardest part about starting the YouTube channel? Just getting up there and talking?
So I'm very much a perfectionist. And so we just talked about it earlier. Like in 2014, I was like, this is the same time I started Instagram, and I was like, I'll just do YouTube too. This would be great. This would be easy. I'll do it. And I got up there and like just seeing yourself on camera and like seeing that, video on the S3, I was like, this is horrible. Like, this looks horrible. Like, I'm horrible. Like, nobody's going to watch this. And so for me, it was just that fear of it not being perfect. And I didn't, and the advice I give people now is like, just start. Like, make your first videos like just as bad as they can be, because you can only get better, and you will get better. And I always tell them, like, look at your favorite YouTubers, go to their channel page, hit videos, and then sort by oldest first. Mm-hmm. And go watch their first 5 videos. And like, and you're comparing yourself to them on day 4072 on your day one. But go compare yourself to them on their day one to your day one, and you'll feel a lot better about what you're doing. And your stuff's probably gonna be way better because, Spagnola was shooting in, whatever, like 4:3 and 780p. So just because the technology has come so far, you can shoot on an iPhone 13 and it's going to look amazing.
Just to see how that's one of the things I like to do is sort a channel's video by their oldest. It's one of the first things I do actually when I'm just doing research for this show is look. Yeah. That's why I didn't see those 2 videos on there. But the thing about that is you can see not just the technical growth, but just the growth of the person, how much more comfortable they look in front of the camera. And, right now you've got such a comfortable demeanor in front of the camera. It comes off really well. And damn, you've got like one of the biggest Instagrams of woodworking, I think. You've got like 500,000 followers on Instagram.
Yep, 500,000.
Impressive.
Decreasing every day.
Is it really?
So I grew. Instagram is it's a really weird. It's become weird. So first of all, Instagram was all like, I love Instagram, and just the fact that like that's kind of where I grew up. That's where I grew the brand, was on Instagram, and so very thankful for that platform. But they've gone pay for play now, right? So it's like if you do anything, like if you tag it with, and they make you tag it, right? So it's like you can't just be like, oh, hey, this is sponsored. Like you have to do hashtag ad, and then once you do that, you have to use the branded content tool, and they just squash that down so heavily because they want you and or the brand to pay to promote it, to get reach. And so what I saw is like the last year or so, if you go back and look, like the way I grew my Instagram channel was I was super consistent. I posted every single day, and then I went to posting twice a day, and that was crazy. I posted twice a day for I think like 18 months, and wow. It was insane. Yeah, it was really crazy. And then I just like got, I grew this big following, and it was awesome. But then like the growth started slowing down in the past like 18 months or so. They've just really shut it down. They've made growth so hard for creators. And then the flip side of that is that they've not kept up to speed with the other channels and the other avenues of monetization. So, you like think about Instagram, like how, as a creator, how do you make money off Instagram? Like you have to, you can't do it on platform. You have to send them off, right? Send them to your course, right? Have them go to, hey, Weekend Woodworker, go check it out. Send them to YouTube to get monetized views. Send them to affiliate links. Send them to my digital plans. Go to plans.fixthisbuild.com.
Oftentimes it's two links, because you've got to, if you want more than one, you're only allowed one link in your bio, right?
Right.
And so then you've got
like
send them
a
there,
link tree.
Exactly. So that's always a problem on every platform, is getting people to click away.
Right.
From the platform.
100%. And so what happened is like 18 months ago or so, the growth really slowed down, and it was like getting so hard to get new followers and just keep the channel growing. And then because of all the other things that happen with views, what I realized is like, this is, I was spending all this time and energy on Instagram, and I grew it. And then now, quite honestly, like I'm just on autopilot, and I post like once a week now, or once, like whenever I have a new video, or if like I'm in the middle of a project, I'll post more, and I'm trying to be good about it, but because there's still a great community there. And that's the thing I don't want to, say like, if I'm not making money there, screw it, I'm not going there. It's not that, but it's just like, there's so many other things that are pulling our attention, right? There's so many different platforms, and TikTok, and, just all of them. YouTube stories, YouTube shorts, YouTube posts, like there's just a million different things you can do. And so if there's this platform that's not giving you as much benefit as it used to, and there's like really no monetary value for it, then the only reason I go out there is like, and I interact with the community. That's basically the only reason I do it, because the growth's not there. And it's really funny. It's like, I've got 500,000 subscribers, like, or followers, and it's not worth anything.
Right.
So
you post mostly videos over there on
I do,
Instagram.
Yeah.
Looks like those seem to work out pretty well, really, actually better than just static posts.
Yeah, and it's mainly, like, quite frankly, it's just because I don't, when I'm in the midst of a project, I just don't think about stopping and taking the picture. And so I'll have my editor, Chris, he'll go in and just make, like, I'll say, hey, grab some clips from the video. So by doing it that way, it's like my whole focus is shooting the video for YouTube and then Facebook, which we'll have to talk about here in a little bit. But is shooting that, and then I just use those clips to populate social media. So it's very low effort at this point, right? So I take it out. I'm not like I used to think like, oh, what's the best shot? And I'm like setting up shots and like doing a whole little vignette, for an Instagram post. And like, no, that's not.
So what you're saying is that if you want to get started on YouTube, Instagram might not be the way to go now.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a unique story, and nobody will follow that story because it's not a thing anymore.
Right. And in that video of your million subscriber video, you talked a lot about subscribers and the growth of your subscribers. That's still a metric that you find meaningful at all, especially considering the followers on Instagram compared to subscribers on YouTube, or they both kind of like become this meaningless number that we just weirdly pursue.
It sounds like a loaded question there, Steve. Sounds like you answered your question.
I think I just did, didn't I?
But no, you're 100% right, because I think it's like, I'm a big goal guy, and for anything, I think like you need to have things to shoot for, and it's a very public facing number, right? So it's a vanity metric, what a lot of people would call it. But there's some key numbers there, right? So it's like when every YouTuber starts, I think they have that idea of like, if I can get 100,000, you get the check mark and you get the silver play button, right? And those are like two super tangible things, one digitally and one physically, that it's a goal. Like if I can reach 100,000 subscribers, like I'm going to get validation, both personally as well as outward, publicly, socially. Yeah, it's like social proof, right? So it's like, I know I'm doing something right. Like I feel good. And again, it's like, I agree that they are vanity metrics, but it's also, I mean, it is a measure of success, right? There's like, you have interested enough, 100,000 people enough to hit that button. They may never watch another video, but
that's the
right.
problem.
And so, there's different things. Like you said, we were talking, I think before the show, I don't think that was part of it, but I just launched a video, and in the first 24 hours it had around 65,000 views. And for me, that's really good. So it's actually the best video I've done in the past year. And that's amazing. But then if you like sit back and go, okay, over 1 million subscribers, only 65,000 of those watched in the first 24 hours, right? That number. So it's like, that number doesn't really mean anything. The number that means...
And it probably wasn't even 65,000 subscribers.
No, oh yeah. Yeah.
It's probably a fraction of that.
Well, it's mostly, that first 24 hours is mostly subscribers. As you get down further, it becomes a lot more non-subscriber. It's probably 80% subscribers in that first, because a lot of it's notifications. But yeah, to your point, it's like what really matters is like the people who are coming back, the active, engaged subscribers. And as you get long in the tooth as a YouTuber, and I think when we talked originally, which I don't know if that's just in the digital bin somewhere. we talked before.
The documentary project started like almost a year ago now.
That's right. So just rehashing. I went back and watched. No, so but I think what we talked about was, or what I mentioned, your video you did maybe a year or two ago about like kind of the life cycle of a YouTube channel, and that around 7 years is when most channels peak and then they start declining. And that's totally true. And so like, unless you're redefining yourself and unless you're changing what you're doing, what happens, and I know it's been interesting. I think I think John Heiss has made some videos recently, and I don't necessarily agree with all the stuff he said, but
they're all just rants.
Yeah, he's ranted quite a bit, but because that, it's like, oh well, older YouTube channels don't get the same access, and I think part of that's true. And part of it is, but it's also self-fulfilled. Like if you make great content that people want to watch, it's going to get served up. It doesn't matter how many followers you have, if you have 10,000 or if you have, 1,010,000. Like if you're making great content, and there is something to be said though about like YouTube will serve it to your subscribers first. And if it doesn't do well with your subscribers, they're not going to push it out further. So if you have a larger base, it does dilute it, but same type thing. But that's the idea. The whole thing is that when you have people that subscribed 5 years ago, and you just talked about, right? Like, look how much you've changed in the last 5 years or 6 years. And so those people who subscribe, like maybe those people, like maybe they have like a phobia of beards, right? Like my original subscribers, they're like, yeah, oh, he now he wears a beard. I don't even want to watch him anymore because like, he looks weird. And so, but they're not going to unsubscribe. And so you get all these kind of like dead weight subscribers over the years. And yeah, it does affect it, but that's not something that, but I don't think it hinders you. And you shouldn't use that as a crutch. It's just, it is what it is. And you're just like, you're changing, the audience is changing, and sometimes they unsubscribe and sometimes they don't, and they just let it die. And like, that's just what happens. Yeah.
I think that the more important metric is just views, especially 100%. If you want to make a business out of it. I always talk about Matthias Wandel having the largest woodworking channel on YouTube, and people immediately look at his subscribers and say, no, he doesn't. I'm like, yeah, but he's got 500 million views. He's got like way more than anybody else in this space, and that's kind of what's the key metric there, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think makes your videos resonate with people? What makes your videos popular, and what separates you from all of the other DIY channels?
Yeah, which is really funny because like I tell people like you know, going in today, like right, if I'm starting a YouTube channel today, like you've got to have something that's going to make you different, and you got to stand out from the crowd because there's just so many out there. But you know, back when I started, like I said, you could just you just be the guy, and it's like which is funny because when I started, I thought, oh, like there's so many people out there, right? There's the Jay Bates, and there's the Steve Ramsey, and the Mark Spagnuolo, and the April Wilkersons, and the Bob Claggett, and all these people, the Matthias and Jimmy DiResta, and on and on and on and on. So back then, those were the big names, and I thought that then, like, how do I stand out? But then I kind of went the opposite direction, and I was like, okay, like the channels that I really resonated with were Bob Claggett, I like to make stuff, Jay Bates, and Mark Spagnuolo, Wood Whisperer, right? So I like looked at those three guys and I was like, what are they doing? I'm going to do exactly that. And so I was like, you know, very like just showing your hands, right? It's like assembling stuff and you know, doing the voiceover and even like the thumbnails. And I tried to just do different projects, but honestly, it was like in their style. But then, and I didn't really think anything of it. I was just like, I'm just trying to do this, and I would try to do cool projects that were different than other people, but they were, you know, they're super basic and whatever. But what I found is that people in the comments were telling me how I was different, and so it wasn't even like I did it purposefully. It was almost like they told me. They're like, and so I would get all these comments that would be like, hey, like I love how clear and concise you are. I love that you're able to simplify things and that you don't drone on and that you don't. So it was like kind of an interesting thing is that I almost let the audience tell me what they liked about me that was different from other people. And that's what I've gotten a lot is that I'm clear, I'm detailed, but concise. So that's like kind of the thing that I try to stand on is like get to the point, but you know, don't belabor it, and then make it valuable, and being able to just, you know, distill down things into their simplest form and communicate it in, you know, a funny way. Like right back then I wasn't doing humor. It was very, you know, robotic. Like, yes, now I will go cut the table saw cuts. Then I will go to it was like, I go back and look and it's like, it's been like somebody could watch my videos and like narrate it exactly as I did. Next, the man went to the miter saw. He made 3 cuts at 26 inches.
Yeah. You seem to now, you mostly do woodworking videos for the most part. And yet, if I look at your most popular videos, like I mentioned in the intro, they're probably more of, I guess you would call those just the DIY projects, flooring and that sort of thing. Does that present you with a dilemma there? Which one do you want to lean into? And do you prefer you must prefer doing woodworking projects just by the amount of them.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's one of those things, again, that changes over time, right? And so I think that sometimes, you know, you make your own path, and sometimes you follow the path that's made for you type thing. I made, so the kind of the story behind the vinyl plank flooring, which really kicked off, I think, the home improvement, was that I do a lot of work with Home Depot, and Home Depot called me up and they're like, emailed me, whatever. They're like, hey, we've got this vinyl plank flooring thing. You know, would you be interested in doing it? Like, we need to do that. And I was like, like, you know, this is like, you know, three years ago, whatever, when vinyl plank flooring was brand new. And it, like, I was like thinking vinyl floor, like, what is this? Like this, it just sounded cheap and chintzy. And I was like, well, I've got sheet vinyl in my laundry room, which is worse than this vinyl plank flooring. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, it actually looks kind of cool. It was like a weathered silver oak look. And, you know, at that time, because that was 2017-ish, I think.
Sounds about right.
And so, like, no, it was actually 2019. But so it's 2019. And at that point, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, they're offering me some money, obviously. I like money. So I'm like, I could do that. Like, you know, we're wanting to do a floor in there anyway. So it's just kind of one of those things. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do it. And not thinking it would really do anything. And then I put the video out and it just like went nuclear almost immediately. And it's been getting, I mean, it's just absurd. It gets like 15 to 30,000 views every day. And it's like,
crazy.
It's been doing that for, the last 3 years, or 2 years, I guess. Yeah. And so that, like you said, like any good YouTuber, I put out 3 more. It's like, I saw that video. I was like, well, I always tell people to double down. And so the next one I did was like 10 beginner mistakes installing vinyl plank flooring. And then I did a vinyl plank flooring in a bathroom. And then I did, ways to cut vinyl plank flooring. And so,
I like that two of them have almost identical thumbnails.
Oh, all 3
in the same position on the left, pushing the vinyl flooring, and those are your 2 of your 3 most popular videos. It's crazy.
Exactly. And so, like I said, so sometimes you do things, and if that hadn't have popped off, maybe I'd just still be doing like a lot of woodworking videos. But I saw that, I was like, hey, that's an opportunity. Like, I need to do stuff in my house. I've got a ton of projects in the house that I want to do. And so why don't, I do more of that. And I had done things before that. Like, I'd done some tile, before that. That was actually one of my biggest videos, was
also another very popular
video. Exactly. And that was in 2018. So, I look at it that way, is like the way I kind of address my channel is I do it in 2 ways. Like, most of the home improvement stuff is things like that we need. So it's like, if you've got the whole list, right? You've got the same list. It's like, I've got all these things I want to do. I've got all these things I think would do well. And then, like, I've got all these other things that, maybe are on the side. And so whenever those 2 can match up, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, yeah, we want to remodel our bathroom. And, oh man, flooring's doing really well. Like, yeah, all that stuff gets pumped to the top. Whereas, like, it's like, oh, like, I would love to make a console table. Yeah, console table video is not going to do well, unless it's got something hidden and LED lights and,
secret stuff.
It's a flying saucer, right? And so it's like, well, that stuff goes to the bottom. And so that's what I find a lot on the channel, is that's where I marry things up. It's like, what do we need in the house? What do I think can do well? And then that third thing is like, when that sponsor calls, right? So I might have something that's down 25th on the list. And actually, that, funny enough, funnily, is that a funnily?
It is now a word.
Yeah. Oddly enough, my second video, I haven't thought about that, Steve, until just now. You're enlightening me. The second video, which is how to restore an old wooden playset.
Yeah, that was weirdly specific, and yet that's your second most popular video.
That was down like in the 50 spot, of like, there's like, I was like, man, that playset looks like crap, but like, I'm not going to take the time to do it, and I don't think it would be a great video, and I don't really have any reason to do it.
And it doesn't really even have searchable. No.
So I'll tell you the story.
How to restore an old wooden place.
I'll tell you the story behind that in just a second. But what happened was that Briggs and Stratton called. I was like, hey, we've got a new pressure washer. Would you want to do a video on it? I was like, wait a minute. This would be perfect. This is down on, number 50, but now I've got a reason to do it, because the sponsor came out and they said, hey, well, we'll give you some money to do it. And so I did that. And I put it out again, not thinking it would do that great, but restored it. Amazing restoration. Looks awesome. It looks pretty much like the first part again now, because that was 3 years ago, but I hadn't touched it since. But what I found was that I was getting all these comments, and I was like, what is going on? Like, what's happening here? And what I realized, so we bought this house, which I think this house was originally built in 2006, which would probably about make sense. And it had this swing set in it. And so this swing set had probably been manufactured for a while now. And I kept getting these comments. I had that exact same swing set. Is that my backyard? Oh, I remember that swing set. Like, and so what happened, it just so happened is like, I probably got the #1 sold play set in America, like in between 2000 and 2005. And then what age are all these kids now? They're all teenagers and like in college, and so they're all just like heavy on social media and so, I mean, if you go and look at that video and look at the comments, I swear over half of them are, that's my playset. I remember. And so it's like this, this weird nostalgia. Yeah. And it's just such a super weird, again, it's like these, so my top 2 videos, like I didn't go into either of those thinking this is going to be a banger. I just like, I thought flooring would do okay. But like the other one, I thought
always the way that seems to work.
Yeah.
You never know.
Like the playset, I literally was just like, I'm going to take one for the team. Briggs and Stratton's going to give me some good money. I'll do it. I need a pressure washer and I need to do that thing. I don't think it's going to do well, but we're just going to do it anyway. And so, and I didn't double down on that one because I've only got one play set, but
what are you going to do?
Right. Exactly. I tried to think of different ways. I was thinking of like, what could I do? Like what nostalgic, like how could I, but it's just, that was more just like flash in the pan, bottled lightning type thing. And it is what it is.
You know what I liked most about the vinyl flooring one is that you laid it out in SketchUp, like how the floor is going to work.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, this shows the brain of Brad at work.
I'm such an like that's like half the comments on that video are like, there's 2 comments. One is like, why would you lay it over that beautiful tile? It's not tile, it's linoleum that looks like tile. Yeah. So if you watched any of the video, you would know that, but that's okay. And the other one is, you're a hack. Like, from like I don't understand. I don't know if you get these same comments, Steve, but especially like for home improvement. I feel like if you're a flooring installer, like that's what you do is you like go watch flooring videos and just to ream people like why are you watching? Like if you are a professional flooring installer, why are you watching how to install vinyl plank flooring as a beginner?
Yeah. Well, a lot of that, it falls into this kind of mansplaining thing where there's this whole thing where people just love to start any comment with, well, actually,
you should have.
That starts like that.
You should have.
Vinyl really doesn't work that way because blah, 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 blah.
Right. Yeah. Not to be a jerk, but that's like the intro to, hey, I'm about to be a jerk. But and so that was the other comment is like, you're such a hack. Like, how like installing that, just like I could have done that in a half hour. That's the other comment. Like, I can't believe you're using layout. And I'm like, I'm not a professional installer. This is my DIY. And if I want to lay out the exact lines down to the 32nd of an inch, like I'm going to do it. Like I'm not trying to tell people how to be a flooring installer. I'm saying this is how, like, if you want to get a super anal installation of vinyl plank flooring, here you go. Grab some SketchUp.
Yeah. And you're going to see one of those. Yeah, exactly. Hey, how's that office remodel coming? I'm really interested. You just have the one video.
Yeah, so it's right here. Right? This is the that's the cabinet, and I love it. I kind of made it my 3D printing, and then I got the laser printer. So I'm actually gonna. The laser printer takes up way too much, or laser cutter takes up way too much space. So I'm gonna make a little cart for it right there. But what you can't see off camera is these 2 industrial shelving racks that I got from Costco. They're like 7 foot tall, 4 foot wide, and this looks like a shipping department. And so one of the things, I don't know how your office looks, but one of the things, like I come in my office and you can kind of even see it over here on the floor, like, this is where all the stuff comes. Like whenever I get a shit. So like, this is like a box of epoxy. And this is like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. It's actually that's a tripod stand. So it's a tripod stand for some lighting I got. And like all the stuff just kind of comes here. And then when I was shipping shirts, when I was doing shirts, we got all the racking so we could, do shirts and hats and all that good stuff. And what I realized is it just like has become this like junked up area. And I want it to be like a creative space, a space that I can come in and not feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm just cluttered with all these things. And so that's what I wanted to make this more, get a lot of storage so I could get things out of the visual clutter and then have a good space for like my 3D printing and make this like really just be a spot where like maybe I could do, more podcasting or whatever. So I'm trying to like change it from utilitarian to more of like a creative place. And so that's probably be one of the next videos is doing some shelving up here and do like, make a little logo sign for the wall and, just make it. I'm just trying to be Peter McKinnon over here, right? I'm just like, I want my office to look cool. And that's like the main driving force behind that.
Well, an office is just a natural place for clutter. I mean, because there's so many papers and just junk that gets just piled up. And if one thing over the last few years is I can't handle clutter. My brain does not function well with clutter. And so I'd like to get rid of stuff. I like to just have everything in its place. And
100%. Do you ever watch these videos that are like minimalist desk studio set? I'm like, how do you function? Like, how do you have a wireless mouse, like, a succulent plant, your wireless keyboard, and then like, your studio monitors? Like, where do these people put their stuff?
Where do they put their cords? Because you can't do everything wireless. I look at, because I've got, my workstation where I used to edit videos. It's up in my office. And just that, I've got like 5 external hard drives from years of videos. All these just cords and cords. And there's just no way of really organizing those cords other than just kind of shoving them.
I got like a monitor stand. Exactly. I've got like my wireless charger, which has a wire on it, and the volume control knobs for the speakers. And I've got like 2 or 3 of these hard drives back there. And like, where are these people's modems at? Like, I've like my modems back there, plus my router, plus my printer. Like, it's just like, there's so much clutter, and I'm trying to cut down on it. But yes, like right in front of me here, I've got a pile of receipts and some rubber flooring samples for, I mean, it's just like there's everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of these are just made for the photo op, basically, but they're not really. You see this on these remodeling shows on HGTV, and where they'll bring in like this beautiful old antique desk or something. They sit it right in the middle of the room, and then when they show it, there's like just a laptop sitting on it.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
Well, okay, I guess, but there's going to be a lot of other things, and what are you going to do? Have cords running across the floor of the room? And so it's just not
exactly. I thought about that. I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have like be behind the desk, and I'm like, no, like stuff's got to be on the wall. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the remodel, and it's going to be exactly that, like trying to actually make it usable and not make it look just like this amazing, beautiful thing. So I'll probably do like an L-shaped desk where I can have like try to minimize what I have. Minimize again. I'm just making up words here. Minimize what I have on the desk, and then have like a little spot where maybe I can do electronics, and I don't know. I'm trying to get into a lot more of that. I know you don't do much of that on your channel. If any. I don't think I've ever seen you do anything with electronics necessarily.
No, it's outside of the purview of my channel.
Yeah, so you're smart. And kind of going back to what you asked me about earlier about the woodworking and that. Like I like a lot of things. I like a lot of different disciplines and electronics and like the 3D printing and the laser and the CNC. And I think that what most people want you to be in your box, right? They want you to be the guy. I think we talked about this in the last one also. We want you to be the guy when they found you. Like they subscribed.
Stay that way.
Day one, whatever you were doing on that video that they subscribed to you to, they want you to be that guy. The vast majority.
You're the vinyl floor guy.
Yeah, the vast majority of the audience wants you to be that guy. And when you change, they don't like that. And so, like when I started first doing CNC, he's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, that's not woodworking. CNC, that's crap. And like, machines are taking over, and Skynet, and all this stuff, right? It's like, the masters didn't do that. I was like, what do you think a table saw is? Like, what do you think a table saw is? Like a table saw, like a dude used to build stuff with a handsaw and a chisel, and I'm sure he was railing on the guy that had the first table saw, right? And then now, the guy with the table saw is railing on the guy with the CNC, and then 50 years from now, the guy with the CNC is going to be railing on the guy with like the plasma cutter, like, whatever, like the human printer. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like everybody wants you to be that person. So I'm trying to expand, and it's not great for the channel. Like that's where you get that splintered audience. And so I've got, the million people, and then now it's like, oh, well, now Brad's doing CNC, and now he's working with laser, and now he's getting into electronics. I'm out. But at the same time, you gotta. I mean, you gotta be true to yourself.
You can say the same thing about your lathe videos. That's also a real niche thing, and you haven't done any of those in a while, have you?
No, I haven't. So you win some, you lose some, and that is something that I enjoyed. But it was like it kind of had like the 3 strikes and you're out. It was like the videos don't do well.
No, I
don't do it very often. And it's very repetitive, right? So it's like once you make a bowl and a pen and an ice cream scoop, like what else can you do? It's kind of, I know you can do a lot of other stuff, but you look like Nick Zametti, those guys. But and then the last one is it just takes up a lot of space, and so I literally got rid of my lathe. I didn't get rid of it; it's in storage. I couldn't.
So is mine.
I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it, but I put it in storage, and so like that was one of the ones where I kind of like, even though I do enjoy it, it just didn't perform right. So that's the difference, is that like making cool things in electronics, like I think those can still do well, and there's an audience for that, and it's just a different audience versus like wood turning. It's like the audience just goes like so small into wood turning specific projects. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you either have to go for that real artistic audience who loves to just see you build, and then you've got to kind of really be good at wood turning to get that level of like, oh my God, this is amazing stuff.
You'd be like Carl
Frank
Jacobson.
Frank
Howarth
does great wood turning stuff. or you have it in your shop to turn the occasional table leg for 30 seconds on a video, but then it sits there the rest of the year
Just
because how often
dust.
do you really need to make a table leg?
Exactly.
That
or
was
like
kind of my problem.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, like I could do like I don't know the proper word for it, but like a split finial or something like that. You know, like I don't even like that style. So it's like I made a few pins and did my bowls and all that stuff, and I was like, all right, well that was fun. We'll put this over here, and like, if I get a big shop, and if I get a big shop, because I'm in a garage just like you, and if I get a big shop one day that's got floor space for it, sure, I'll keep it over there, and I'll use it once a year, and it'll be fine.
I liked your garage organization. This one also made me laugh when you had the garage organizing your garage walls the easy way. And it was a great video, by the way. I thought it was a good video. But the funny thing about it is you were like, I've got this messy wall, and there was like 2 extension cords there. I'm like, oh man, that's nothing.
I know. Yeah,
I thought it was a great way to organize your walls, really.
Yeah,
and
I did too.
Garage organization is something that everybody struggles with, even if you don't have a shop, because it's just become the catch-all.
Right.
What would you say is like the best tip you have for organizing a garage space?
Oh man. I think that garage, and I'll do 2 because I have a video, oddly enough. No, so 13 easy ways to organize a messy woodworking shop. I'll put that out in July, and I went over like a lot of tips and tricks. So I think people could get a lot out of that. But I think like what I talked about in that video, like one of the first things, and so I am an engineer and I was in process improvement and lean manufacturing, all this good stuff. So one of the things that always hit me from that side of my business life, and I've tried to bring it over, is a place for everything and everything in its place, right? So it's like you can't be organized if you don't know where to put things, right? If you just like grab that and you're like, oh, this goes in that pile, right? And it's like, I used to be so bad about the pile, and I would just have like an egg crate, and I'd have a sander in there and my circular saw, and then like whatever, my drill, and then like when that overflowed, I'd go to the next one, right? And I just kind of like put stuff everywhere, versus being like, okay, this is the spot, like I've done a cordless drill charging station like everybody else, and so this is where my drill lives, and if I'm not using my drill, that's where it should be. And at the end of the day, or the end of the project, right? Like I'm not that crazy, but at the end of the project, when I clean up, I have a home base for it. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's like you have to have dedicated spots for things to go, because if you don't, you can never stay organized, because things are just floating around, and you have to have that dedicated spot, because it's like if you have that pile, and like when you need to put both things there and they both don't fit, like what's going to happen? So that's kind of like from a shop perspective, but then from a garage perspective, more broadly, I think the same thing. It's just like basic shelving, man. Just grabbing some 2x4s and some OSB and throwing it together. Take that loan out, buy that wood, and
getting better.
It is. I love it. Like that was also like people just love that. It's gotten old now, but like 6 months ago, like the most commented thing.
It's almost like a trope.
Oh yeah, it was like, oh yeah, that's $20,000 worth of wood, and because I've got several projects that are named like DIY bed for $75 right there, like, and like people will come in and be like $75, can't even get 2x4s. Well. Yeah, exactly. This didn't age well. So yeah, getting some basic, like start with the basics. Start with some 2x4 storage, and then some bins. Like I think that's a great start for any garage organization. If you're just getting started, like man, I just have stuff everywhere on the floor. Get it up on the walls. Kind of reclaim your floor space is like my biggest advice on that stuff.
Are there any kind of DIY or home improvement projects that just intimidate you that you just wouldn't take on?
I've done almost everything that you can do in a house. I know a lot of people are like scared of electric. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I'll do it. I've done the 110 dance many times. You stick your finger on there.
Get that zap.
Oh yeah. By the way, do you still say 110 and 220?
Yeah.
This whole 120, like
I know.
I feel bad for 115 and 230. That was like a pit stop. It was like, like who, if there's anybody out there that says 115, they're going to be weird. But yeah. And so there was a Jeopardy question. I got it wrong because my son was asking. It was like something about what's the standard household voltage. And I was like 110. And he's like, no, Dad, it's 120. I was like, no, it's not. It's 110. Like, don't mess with me.
Like
it's 110.
Googling.
Exactly. Anyway, so I don't care about that. I've done gas lines. I know a lot of people are really freaked out about gas lines. I've done that. It's fine. I think the one for me now is probably like roofing, because one, mainly more so because of my wife. My wife is terrified of heights. And so when she sees me, like when we were still dating, I owned some rental properties up in Cincinnati, and there's it was like a 1917 build. So it's like they had the old box gutters, like the big metal box gutters.
Oh yeah.
And I was out there, like, they get clogged up. And so I was out because it's like just huge swaths, right? And there's like all these leaves get in there. And so I was out kind of milling around on the second floor. I wasn't milling around. Like I was like meeting people. I was out there just like cleaning some things. And at one point I had to get back up to the third floor. And so, of course I didn't have any safety gear on or anything. And I'm like hanging out the window, and I was like, hey babe, and she was like up there with me. She was like, and I was like, hey, just like grab my belt. So if I fall, I was like, grab my belt, and I'm like up here doing some things, and I didn't think anything of it. And I come back in, and she is like bawling, crying, like almost in the fetal position. Like she was so scared that I was going to like dive over the end. And she was like, promise me you'll never go back out there. And I was like, okay, like, that's cool. So I stopped doing that, and I'll still do some ladder work, but anything that's like super high up, I try to avoid. But other than that, I think stuff is intimidating, but I think if you just take it in small chunks, that probably like foundation stuff, like expansions. That's something. I mean, I would definitely hire somebody out or have somebody do that with me. I mean, I don't have the tools or the wherewithal to do that anyway. But even like doing like footers for a deck and stuff, like that's probably something I haven't attacked, more so just because I haven't had the need for it. But like I'm pretty intimidated about that, about like building structure, right, that's going to be supporting my house.
That's one of the hardest things for DIYers to know, is at what point to just say no, and like, I probably shouldn't do this. And I think that it's important on channels like yours, where you show, here are some of the pitfalls that I experienced, that you might do this, so that when somebody watches that vinyl flooring video, they can make a reasonable assessment of like, yeah, I think I could do that, or this is just beyond what I really want to get into. Yeah,
that's another popular comment, especially on the flooring videos, is like, I'm glad I watched this. I'm definitely not doing this now.
See, I wouldn't do it.
Right. Well, it's so funny though, like the dichotomy of just the mindsets out there of like literally it'll be like, oh my gosh, I will never do this. And the next one will be like, you're a hack. I could have done this in 30 minutes. Right. It's like you have just like such a broad audience. But yeah, and that's why I've started doing that. That was something I started, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, probably, is leaving my mistakes in. And I think people, back to your earlier question about, how I differentiate, and a lot of people are doing that now, but I tried to do that, and I got a lot of great feedback. It's like, oh man, I love that, and this is one that cracks me up. I love it when like the pros show their, and like, yes, technically I am a professional. I get paid to do woodworking, but I am not like, I'm not a master carpenter. I'm not like a master of anything. Like mistakes were made. Like that's a motto around here, because like I can find a way to screw up every project, but I can also fix it. Right. And so I think that's what people learn about, is like, people learn through mistakes. Like that's how we all, right. You don't take your first step and then go. You fall on your butt 1,000 times before you do it as a kid. And if you stopped and just was like, this walking's not for me, I'm out. I'm going to crawl the rest of my life. Like you can't, right? It's like, you got to keep going, and you learn through mistakes, and show us, as a creator, as we can show people like, yes, we make mistakes too. And not just to show that I'm human or I'm a mere mortal per se, is to show how to work around it. It's like, oh man, yeah, if you cut this board too short, get out the wood stretcher, all right, those don't exist. Okay, how can we do it? we'll scab another piece in there, or I'll change the design or whatever, right? And so I'll repurpose that for something else, and then take another part that I had that was longer and work it out. And I think that's where a lot of value in content comes from, is just working through problems, because that's like woodworking, home improvement, like that's more than anything, it's about problem solving. It's about figuring out how to work around the issues that you're going to inevitably come up with. I
think that video that you just came out with that is performing so well on Plywood, your Plywood video, I think that is probably the best comprehensive look at plywood that I've ever seen. And I think that that's really going to, it'll be a continual video. Years from now, people will still be looking at that, because I always get those kind of questions. What is the numbering system? What's the lettering system on plywood? What do I choose? How do I know what to get? Because when you go to, especially a home center, and they have all these different types, and they're all labeled differently, right? It's very confusing. So I, for one, was really happy you had that video, and I could just kind of
thank you.
This explains it all.
Yeah, and like the funny part is, like a lot of that stuff in there, I didn't know 5 minutes before I recorded it, right? So you just like look it up.
Googling.
You just take the time. I'm like, and I knew, like, I've been buying plywood for a long time, and I know the grades. Like I knew, what BC stood for. And, I still don't know, like, I know where to get it, but there are very specific. So there's the one thing I didn't realize was the difference in grades. Like a grade is not a grade, like a B grade is just not a B grade as a B grade as a B grade. It's like, this is the B grade by the National Hardwood Veneer Association. And so that's only applicable to hardwoods in North America, right? And so if you're getting Baltic birch, a B is different than a Baltic birch B grade. Like a B in Baltic birch is like top of the line. And so it's like a 1B on one side and a 2B on the back. And I didn't even get into that because that just got so much. But as I didn't realize all that. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And the fact that, the backs can be 1 through 4, or we're just going to go ahead and grade it the same way at the front and also be A through D, right? And so, yeah.
It's so confusing.
It is. I spent so long.
It's like, just start grading it with emojis or something.
Right. Here, do you want the poo emoji or the sad face? Like, which one do you want? And I really struggled with that, because I actually shot the whole video before that. Like, I shot a piece and I was like, this is way too confused. Like I was talking about, I was just like doing different things. And I was like, I get back to the thing. I was like, we have to simplify this. Like, how can I easily tell people about grades enough that they're knowledgeable to make a decision, but not so much that I'm talking about the number of knots and the size of knots that are applicable in any grade category, right? So it's like, all right, let's arm the people. Like, I see these numbers, I see these letters. What do they mean? Okay, they're grades. You could see a C3 or a BC, and why are those different? And how are those different? And so, it's one of those things I think that is easy to go in and just be like, I have no idea what that means. But then it's also easy to explain.
And I think it's important for woodworkers, especially, to know that plywood's a great building material. A lot of woodworkers kind of bristle at that, and it might be because they're thinking of the construction grade plywood. But
right.
I mean, I've bought cherry plywood and walnut plywood, maple plywood. It's gorgeous. Although that top layer of veneer is super, super thin. It's like paper.
It is. You just like look at it the wrong way and it'll burn through. But yeah, it's because I build so much, so I'm like the opposite, right? Like, I should do that one day, like go and like count how many sheets of plywood worth of projects I have in the shop. But I've got the whole cabinet run, and so I build stuff with plywood all the time. And so what I kept seeing, and I'm sure you do this as well, is back to the video topic idea and like, what do you show and what do you do, is that I'll also let the audience guide that. And so I get questions all the time. Where do you get your plywood? Can I use 1/2 inch? Like, gosh, I get that all, like, those are more like DMs. Like, hey, I'm building this. I get those too a ton. Can I use MDF? And I'm like, please do not build that flip top out of MDF. That thing will fall apart in about 2 seconds. Right? Because like MDF's not great for forces. Like, if you're going to build someone's saying like a subwoofer box, absolutely, go ahead. You're going to build some like static shelves and then put hardwood trim on them. Yeah, okay. I mean, like, I probably wouldn't do it for the dividers, but like, it's a great paintable surface. But like, if you're going to be storing lateral support on MDF, like, you're just asking for trouble. It's going to sag, and if you get any water on it, it's just going to, destroy. So, I think having that feedback loop of the comment section and the DMs, that is the great part about knowing what the audience is looking for. And that was one that people have been asking me forever. And I thought, man, I should just make a video on this.
Right. Where would you like to see your channel going in the next year? Now that we're 2020 was kind of a weird year in a lot of ways, as I'm sure everybody is aware, but it was an especially weird year for YouTubers, I think. And it seems like now we're kind of back to this, even though here we are towards the end of 2021. Anything you'd like to see happen on your channel?
Did you feel the guilt? Did you feel the COVID guilt?
From doing so well?
Yes,
on YouTube.
right. Like that. As a woodworking YouTuber,
every YouTuber was just killing it. I mean, wow! I couldn't believe the numbers. People signing up for my courses. That was just amazing.
Insane. And then at the same time, you're reading all the stuff about people getting laid off and like everybody, and you're like, I'm having the best year ever. Like, you know, that's like,
don't say that.
I know. Really, it's like mentally, exactly. You had to like temper everything, and then and then now we're on the backside of it. I think we're on the recoil. Especially the summer. I don't know about you, but all my stuff was way down because
across the board, views across the board.
100%. Because everybody's
out doing stuff.
Exactly. They're like, man, I've got all this money that I've saved up over the last 18 months. If I, was lucky enough to not be impacted from a job perspective. And so people are traveling, people are not out watching. So yeah, I'm kind of in that same thing, when you combine the two of them, 2020 and 2021, if you averaged them out, it's probably, right about where it should be. But 2020 was crazy. 2021, not so great. Starting to kick back up. So I think that, as far as the channel goes, and just kind of what I've alluded to a bit here in the conversation is trying to do some new things, bring in some more electronics and have fun, and try to, because that's what, I never answered your question, but honestly, I've said this multiple times, but I don't, is going to sound really weird. I don't really enjoy woodworking. I don't enjoy it in the sense of in the process, in the moment. Like, I'm not the guy who's like, I just love running these boards through the table saw and this is just...
You're a project based.
Yeah, I like, exactly, 100%. I love building things in the sense that I can look behind me and look at this cabinet. I love being able to look at it, get the utility out of it, being able to say I built it, the fulfillment of being able to fill a need in my life with my hands and being able to make that, there's a ton of pride and fulfillment tied into that. But the actual physical act of, breathing in sawdust and like that, that's not something that I really enjoy. And so as I start thinking about other things that I do enjoy, I like when I'm doing electronics and stuff, I do get a lot of fulfillment out of that and or designs, like 3D printing, if I'm in the computer, but that stuff's, it's not sexy, right? Nobody wants to watch me design in SketchUp on the computer, right? So it's how do you work those things in? But
hey, you can lay out a vinyl flooring in SketchUp.
I know, get reamed for that. But I think that's where the channel is headed. But also we're growing. So, just as you, right? You started as Steve Ramsey and now you're Woodworking for Mere Mortals LLC or Incorporated or whatever your business is, right? I'm a business owner. It's not me in my garage. I have full-time employees. I have people that work for me. So it's like business. So looking at the growth of the business and becoming more of a brand versus a creator. And that's a whole nother podcast, but about that differentiation of having something that's your baby that you built on your own and then scaling that into a broad business and having people help and just figuring it all out and how to stay true to yourself, but grow the business and do all that and stay true to your audience and grow your organization along with your people. And so that we're working through all that stuff right now, going through that growth and figuring out how, what does Fix This Build That look like in the next 5 years. And I'll tell you that it's not me sitting in my shop making woodworking projects solely. It's expansion and figuring out new areas and new formats and, just keeping relevant so that in that 7 years, we don't die, right? Because that's where that channel dies. If I'm there and, we could list off some of them. I mean, we're not going to, but mentally, we know some of those channels who have not changed and they're just not relevant anymore because...
Yeah, that's just it. If you don't keep trying the new things, you definitely will get stale. And it seems like you're on the
right. And you're doing the same thing. I mean, obviously, you went full steam into YouTube Shorts, right? And you're like, hey, I'm going to go check this thing out and figure it out. So yeah, that's just the thing.
And then there's shows like this one, the podcast, which does really well, just not on YouTube.
Right.
I sort of post the YouTube versions as like a courtesy, but oh man, they just die.
Yeah.
It's just YouTube death.
Yeah, we never did it when I was doing the podcast. We were like, I don't want to do YouTube because it's.
I think I might just do like highlight clips or something.
Yeah, that could be a good one.
It's hardly worth editing a full hour for 8,000 views or something.
Right. I think the hot take will be the poop emoji grading system for plywood.
Right. Well, Brad, congratulations on all of your success, and I really want to thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Enjoyed it.